leaders who would discuss on how can you build a revitalized procurement function. And for the discussion, let me invite on stage Naveen Ahlawat, Chief Procurement Officer, Jindal Steel and Power, Shom Chatterjee, VP Head of Procurement and Logistics, ITC Limited Foods Division, Sandeep Balakrishnan, Procurement Head, ID Fresh Foods, Divya Kumar, CMM Leader, Chemical Procurement Europe and Africa at Colgate Palmolive Limited, Pradnesh Chodankar, Senior Vice President, Head Procurement at DBS Bank India Limited, Jaswinder Saini, Head of Procurement Tata Play Limited, Prashant Pathak, Vice President Procurement from Nuvoco Vistas, and I would like to invite on stage Somit, who is the panel chair, VP Central Purchase and Head Central Procurement and Planning Department from Dabur India. Let's hear it for them once, please. Welcome, and Somit, over to you.
So we have twin challenges. One, of course, this particular panel, which says that be brave and bold, and how can you build a revitalized procurement function? Very apt topic. And second, that it is post-lunch. And there's no gap. And the lunch also is very short. So the process will continue out here. It is my pleasure to chair this session, and within August panel, and which are such a distinguished audience out here. And I'd request all of you also to be co-participants with us, because you see, it's not up to anyone to build the procurement function. And what has happened in the last 2 years, first the 2 black swan events of COVID 1-2, maybe a 3, maybe a 4 somewhere, etc., etc. So if those were black swan events, then what has happened recently, Russia and Ukraine and all that, can be called as nothing short of asteroid events as far as this audience is concerned, commodities. So now you have those managing directors and chairmen and promoters of companies in those organizations seeking out the procurement people. So you are those people. You know, they require extra medication and healthcare. And the other day I was in a discussion. These days all these things have again started in which we meet in person. And a PSU, there was a PSU procurement team. And they were proudly mentioned. They were mentioning to us actually over the lunch table that their teams, and they were into gas basically. So they said that, okay, you are the people who are bringing in all the material, you know, because things have moved to contracts that they used to do long-term contracts, etc. in utilities, where there's a fixed demand, and to spot contracts. And we all know what spot can mean there. So that's the scenario out here. So not taking too much of my own time, I'd like to move to the panel. And I'd request the panel to discuss their experiences and then discuss what they did and what should be then therefore be done. And then we'll move over to, asking you and you asking us, all of us, to see what should come out. And we hopefully at the end of this panel can pass a resolution as to what a revitalized purchase function, procurement function will look like. So on that note, I first request Naveen to come up with points. I have no leading indicators. Naveen, the forum is all yours.
Thank you, Somit. So, thank you so much, SM, for giving this opportunity. It's a pleasure meeting all the fraternity under one roof after a couple of years. So, I'm Naveen Ahlawat. I represent Jindal Steel Power. So, we learned a lot actually. This COVID session for us actually is a game changer for us, for us as professionals and for the company as well. So what we learned? So the first thing we learned was 3C: communicate, collaborate, and connect. I think, and our earlier panelists, I think the participants, they discussed about the transparency with their suppliers. And this is exactly what we learned. We saw the resilience. See, often we talk about our resilience as a professional. We never talk about the resilience of the suppliers. But we have seen the resilience of our supplier partners. How they collaborated, how fair and transparent we were, and how they reciprocated. I think it was an amazing sense of, reciprocation from them. If you pay them well, on time, if you treat them well, and if you work with all the fairness with them, they can pull out miracle out of the entire situation. I can tell you with full confidence. Second is about the changing competition into competition. This was also one of the major learning for us. So we are in the eastern part of our operations are in eastern part of India, in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha. So in Odisha, we have a cluster. So, within 60-70 kilometer radius of our plant, we have Tata Steel operating, we have Bhushan Steel Power operating, we have JSL operating, all these big GSW operating. So in this COVID time, we are competitors. We work, we compete for the same, basically same product or for same, product. But in this particular area, we found out that, how fair we were, how transparent we were. Some of the ferroalloy, some of the refractories, some of the graphite electrodes, where we were short of. I called the chief procurement officer of Tata's or GSWs, and they called me, and how we supported each other. I think the first aid that was required at that time, when everything was stopped and everyone was just contemplating how we will take it forward, I think that the first aid was given by converting this competition to competition. That was the second learning. And the third most important learning was we were asked by the Ministry of Steel and the Prime Minister Office to supply liquid medical oxygen, LMO. So our 20%, 30% of the time was ensuring the inbound logistics of the LMO. The entire rake used to come in our plant, and we were personally loading those liquid oxygen, and how we were, moving those the trucks and rakes. So the important point out of this this learning is that whatever we do, it has to hit the last person in the value chain, and that is what we have to aim for. A couple of days back, we dedicated 1.4 million ton, rebar mill to the nation. So the Minister of Steel, he gave a very important point that, whatever work you do in such a way that it impact the last person in the organization. That is the society where you are operating it. So this is also the learning. Then the disruption, quickly I'll go through. Disruption, what disruption we are, I think these are not new to us. We as a professional, we see all this disruption, and it will keep on happening. We will not come to a point where we have a streamline and steady state. We are not going to achieve to that situation. So we as a professional, we have to see that how we have to take care of disruption, and what are the enablers which can help us. So digitalization, is one of the key enabler which can help us to actually navigate through this difficult time in terms of, for us as a manufacturing organization, like we are paying so much of emphasis on machine learning, on Industry 4.0, and which is really giving us those rewards, the advanced process controls, which we are, implementing level 2, level 3 across all our organization, which is really giving us all the output. Because that is what, it is going to help us. And the second point in our fraternity, is basically about the human capital. I can clearly see, I interact so many supplier partners, and we see that there is so much of gap so far as the human capital is concerned. So we, as a leader, it is our responsibility to develop our team, to ensure that yes, we keep in this whole also. You see the gender ratio. 95% are men and only 5% are women. So it is not good when we see futuristic. There has to be a balance. So that is how I think we have to move forward. And the last point from my side will be, as a leader, we have to focus only on two things. Number one, the things which make us successful. Number two, the things which can kill us, and rest are emails, going back and forth. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Naveen. We take from your from what you said, resilience, competition to competition. That's a new term, and so true. And finally, the importance of human capital. Moving on to Shom, a different industry and different thoughts, perhaps.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Somnath Chatterjee. I represent ITC's foods business. I'm sure most of you are our consumers. Ashirvad Atta, Sunfeast biscuits, Bingo chips, Be Natural juices, etc. So that's what we do. And what I'm going to talk to you about is, first of all, a money-making tip so that you can recover your expenses for coming to this conference. Get up on Monday and buy as much edible oil as you can. Right? And I guarantee 15 rupees a kilo or a liter, whatever the case might be, gain within the next week, 10 days. 5 or 6 years back, I was presenting to my management team, and the first slide that I had was just 4 words. It was VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. And they were like saying, "Kya Shom, tum bade ye terms leke aate ho, kya hai?" And when COVID hit, that's when the management really realized what does VUCA mean, right? And we are living in a state of such flux today that, I mean, forget the Ukraine war, everyone knows that. But last Friday, I don't know how many of you know in this forum that India ends up importing almost 65% of its edible oil, right? Yes. And of that 65%, 60% is from Indonesia. And the government of Indonesia suddenly woke up on Friday and said, last Friday, that we will not export any palm oil anymore to anybody in the world. So the kind of disruptions that this will bring to the food supply chain is immense. Now the theme of this panel is be bold, right? And here is a very, very practical tip which I'd like to share with this august gathering of colleagues from the procurement and supply chain function, is that, you know, for far too long, maybe our function has taken a little bit of a backseat. We've never been heard enough. But now you have to be bold and push. And we've been doing that over the last year, year and a half. And I'll give you some examples how you can actually influence your bottom line. So, you know, we have these brand managers, and most of our products are what at Sumit, you would appreciate this, at that price point.
Yes.
₹5 ka chips ka bag, ₹10 ka biscuit, you know, ₹30 ka family pack. And the marketing people, they are so reticent, they are so hesitant to ever change that.
Correct.
So what they keep doing is they keep reducing the grammage. And we
unless the coin goes out of circulation.
Yeah, but then who uses a coin now?
Yeah, so the note. Even
You
that
know,
will prompt it, this crisis.
Absolutely. So, you know, we've been going there, and the joke within ITC Foods is कि अभी और ₹5 के चिप्स के बैग में चिप्स कम करेंगे तो सिर्फ नाइट्रोजन रह जाएगा, है ना?
Yes.
So, therefore, you know, we've been pushing, and I'm happy to say that because of the push from maybe our colleagues from competition, for instance, Frito-Lay, for the first time in its history, has actually taken up the ₹5 ka chips ka packet ka daam to ₹6, right? And you know, this is a
disruption. Price went up. It's good for the company.
Yeah, you have to ultimately. So that's the theme. Be bold. You got to think. You know, Maggie for the for the longest period they were at 10 rupees,
Yes.
and we were at 12 rupees, and they were really trying to suffocate us till the time they could, right? And then they moved from 10 to 14, one shot, right? Yeah. These are things, and I'm sure these decisions have been influenced by us, the procurement folks. So, you know, I mean, I can go on. There are so many other instances, but we have a shortage of time. But my little advice, and, you know, don't go by the color of my hair. It's all dyed. I've got 30 years here, and I'm an old man. And the only thing that I'd like to share with my young colleagues over here is you got to be bold. You got to push it, because you are the guys who really know what is the market. And you got to influence the bottom line of your company. So with that, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shom. So I might just add my 2 cents to this. You see, we all say, and I firmly believe in it, and this pushback constantly occurs in this organization, in my organization, or at least where I speak. You see, the prices of your product are decided by the competition, right? Not by the brand manager, but he believes that he does it. For those companies who have brand managers marketing, and the profits or the margins of the company are decided by this forum. So on that note, you know, I would now move to Sandeep for a whiff of the fresh.
Good afternoon, folks. We have heard from the experts here. I represent ID Fresh Food. You would have heard about the ID story. So that's the identity. Unfortunately, we are in the graveyard shift, which is post-lunch. And I would request your attention to the little piece of anecdotes which we would have to share with you on how a brand can position its procurement team to revitalize the function. Like Shom rightly said, the panel is discussing how to be bold and brave here. When we say bold and brave, I think in this VUCA world, that should be the theme that any procurement guy should look at. Right. It is actually nigh that now we should make our presence felt. We have been taking the back seat. We have been always doing the donkey's work and probably not getting what we deserve to get. The last 2.5 years have been something which we would not have experienced in our entire life. We would not have seen this kind of disruptions. For me, in hindsight, probably this looks like the 5th edition of Gods Must Be Crazy. That was the kind of times we passed through. We don't need a treatment here. The procurement function needs a transplant. We need to think totally different. Now, if I was to present a storyboard and say that, no, this should be the movie, I would say, what was the storyboard? The storyboard was obnoxious oil prices, atrocious rice, wheat prices, Shom will agree, unbelievable fuel prices, unreachable vendors for services, unavailable inputs for capital goods. You name them, all the problems in one capsule, right? That was the 2.5 years we went through. And if I have to make the climax for the same movie, it would be unhappy management, correct? Unsatisfied customers, and unsure of our future. The procurement team, for that matter. So, But then, a big credit to the fraternity. Many of my peers are here, seniors are here, that we pulled it off in the last 2.5 years with all the efforts, unsung heroes. We have not spoken about it much, but we have pulled it off. We had made sure that we revitalize the function during the changing times. Now at ID Fresh Food, and what I think most of our friends in the industry, be it from telecom, be it from IT, be it from any industry, I think most of us would have placed it this way. What did we do? We did think little different. We wanted to reposition and redefine what is our aspiration to be in procurement at ID. Negate the negotiations. This would sound very counterfactual. I'm very sure that all the procurement pundits would say, what do you mean not to negotiate? This is what we have been doing throughout our life. I don't know, we are born negotiating and we get into organization negotiating for salaries. So negate the negotiations was something which we tried to coin during the lockdown phase because the focus was on availability. We could not dilute that at that point in time. Second, we wanted to rekindle the lost art of trust in relationships because our vendors also needed trust as much as our customers needed. That was the phase we wanted to pass through, and we made sure. We had mails sent out to our vendors at large saying that if you are in need of something, please reach out. And that statement really made a mark because it was quoted even of recent times that this was one of the organizations which did it. Third, I would sound a little cynical here, but humor the supply chain. You have to understand that we serve the manufacturing, we serve the HR, we serve the finance, we serve the IT, we serve the watchmen also. So we serve everyone. So we need to be sure that we are humoring them in the right sense. When I say humor, you might have plans of A, plan B, plan C. But what about the D to Z? I think you can probably borrow their D and Z and probably say this is my D to Z. So I have a fallback option based on what the other teams have around us. That's what S&OP meetings we spoke about. We spoke about meetings which can do on a daily basis these kind of planning. And the last piece from my 2 cents of knowledge is basically that the show must go on. We should probably ensure that the supply chain works as a seamless machine. And if that has to happen, we have to revitalize the procurement function. There is this very, very, I think, cliche statement which is used by everyone from Marshall Goldsmith. What has brought you here will not take you there. So we have to change, and I think this is the forum which has to actually talk about it. And this is how you will become more bold, more brave, revitalize the function, and redefine the very definition of procurement. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandeep. Let me add here to the movie that you mentioned, Gods Must Be Crazy. There is another parallel that is there, which is actually this movie called Perfect Storm by George Clooney. Except that at the end of it, nobody survives. So I guess I thought a lot before I said this. I think we'll just pull off a different climax. On that note, I move to Divya. And Divya will talk about his experiences, about what's been going on and what lies ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Divya. I'm working for Colgate in chemical procurement space. So a year back, the company decided that I should be working on Europe and Africa, Eurasia for chemical procurement. And perhaps that was the perfect timing, right? So I think only a procurement professional can understand what's happened over the last 18 months, specifically on a chemical procurement space. So I think we talked on resilience. I'll just build it up a little further. I think in the current space, when you're talking about a reimagined procurement function, resilience has become one of the key competencies. So it's become one of the very vital competencies. And we as an organization have also been working on how do we build capabilities for procurement professionals around this capability. So it's about definitely holistic risk management. But I think even apart from that, it's also about building up that positive emotion, that positive outlook in terms of how can you have the right culture within the organization. I think that's also become very vital. In the current space where things had been very challenging, where making products reach the shelf itself became a true challenge. So I think that was again something which became very important. In terms of holistic risk management, I think few things which have become very different from past. I think single source or geographical risk mitigation were being looked at as some of the areas to build procurement risk management. I think it's now gone further. There are things which have been started looking into financial risk management. How do we have understanding of some of the financial risk associated with various vendors, specifically the smaller vendors, the tail spend where many of the risk lies. I think that's something which has become more vital. Also, I think it's been becoming more and more vital to understand how the demand has also been varying, not just the supply. It's been very important to understand against your contracts. Let's say you've covered 100 in your contract. In the last 3 months, have you used 33 or have you used already 70? So those scenarios on demand fluctuations have been also very vital in the last 18 months period where you've seen demand also going very crazy in certain specific lines. So that's been the case. And also, I would say China sourcing has also been one of the areas which continues to be of focus, where it's been required at many times to take those bold decisions of moving out to alternate geographies, developing sources in alternate geographies to completely make your supply chain more resilient. So I think those things continue to be of importance. How do we look at building a supply chain which can have optimum risk management and also looking into the future? What are the volume changes happening? What are the areas where you see the future demands growing in and start proactively working on that? I think another good thing which has been a learning is in terms of, which I think was never happening in the past, is making sure different business functions, whether it's technical team, research team, finance team, making sure they understand the markets. So now you find the larger business interested in understanding how commodity trends are going, where you see suppliers shrinking their portfolio, reducing some of the materials which perhaps are not of great margins to them. Just like we think of our own products, they also think of their own products, where they have been looking at making their portfolios smaller and giving that visibility to the entire business so that the future business, future formulation are looked into from that lens. I think those things are truly which are changing when we are looking at the future. So yeah, I think those were a few things which I thought I'd share from my side. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Divya. Actually, nowhere else is it borne out more, this choice of which product or what substrate to make, other than the petroleum supply chain. You see, that kind of thing. Or even in the building materials. Because there's so many choices that have opened up that these matrices are different and uniquely different from geography to geography. So that's the definition of what's going on out here and how we have to prepare for it. Thanks a lot. And next I move to Pradnesh. And Pradnesh brings to the table great experience, which is very varied. So I request him to touch upon something from everything that he has done so far.
So good afternoon, everyone. So thank you, Institute of Supply Chain Management, for having this organized. Most importantly, many of us, I could see that we were all connected on LinkedIn, and it's so nice to have meeting them personally. And this actually has given us a platform where we could connect with each other, not just on LinkedIn chats kind of stuff. Yeah. So, a lot of folks, I mean, all these folks are from FMCG, and a major part of my career has been with Hindustan Unilever. So I would really not talk about, FMCG, but talk about something else. Okay. So I was with Unilever for 18 years, then Abbott Pharmaceutical, then Raymond's, and now bank. So I think so I will be the only person who will be representing banking industry, BFSI industry in the entire forum, isn't it? So when we talk about change, I think so change, as they say, is the only constant, and especially in the business environment, change is relative to the industry. Okay, what is change for FMCG is different for a pharmaceutical or even a banking business. Also, what maturity levels they are into, and however, the basic principles of procurement, and fundamentals which we work upon, is the cost management, the customer service, and the compliance. These are the three pillars, according to me, where a procurement professional works around, and all other things rotate around it. So whatever he does, he has to focus, ensure that he delivers on cost. Customer service is key, because if we are not in the market, we lost the market share. And to gain a market share, my friends from ITC can very much mention about it. Okay, I think so he has already mentioned about 5 rupees and 6 rupees packs and those kind of stuff. And the intense competition what we have. So these are the things. However, for the banking industry, while we all spoke about, being paperless, we spoke about being green. However, there's a big amount of, if you talk about my 100% area, especially as the BFSI sector is concerned, 50% is procurement, 50% is risk and governance. Because RBI plays a key role in whatever we do. BFSI sector functions on customers' money. Okay, it's not about soaps and detergents. It's about customers' money. It's about, so whatever they do, it has to have a lot of governance to it. And therefore, it came as a big surprise, the kind of documentation which goes into procurement, one of the procurement mandates. However, within that, we need to look into so how do we manage to, create that agile procurement structure within the hard-coded environment. So that is something which is a challenge. Secondly, one topic which was discussed was about the licenses, something like Oracle licenses. How do you actually know what is the right price for buying those licenses? Okay, most of the organizations which are global in nature, like they all have regional deals. So they would, like, for example, DBS Singapore will have a global deal, or Colgate will have a global deal with Oracle, or those kind of. However, it all depends upon the share of business, how much you give to Oracle. So every company, upon this share of business, will actually dictate or dominate the pricing. So what component, what price to buy, it becomes a challenge. And as it was rightfully said, it's the cost for the intellectual property. It's not about making of that particular software. So I think so these are the challenges which are faced today by the BFSI sector. Managed services. Somebody just mentioned, I mean, in the morning, like, how do you know how many people are working? Most of the BFSI sector actually works on the outsourced manpower for its technology or for its operations. How do you know about the productivity of those people, right? How do you justify the cost for those people? So these are some of the challenges which we work upon. We benchmark. However, still, there are a lot of unanswered questions, because procurement, when I've seen the procurement in manufacturing sector over the service sector, the procurement is still at a very nascent stage. And there is a huge amount of scope for procurement professionals from manufacturing sector to look into the BFSI sector, where the skills are more relevant, and we actually wear the hat of cost of goods sold. Because nobody thinks about the cost of goods sold as far as BFSI sector is concerned. They just say that I want a technology to be purchased. I want to service the customer. So when you actually think, when we actually get into that particular sector, a manufacturing guy, he thinks about how the procurement is done and not on what the procurement is to be done. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Pradnesh. Actually, to add some voice to what you said just now, one of the issues with procurement, and I'm sure people will agree out here, is that even against, if you look at the overall supply chain discussion, there are two parts to it. Something that happens and starts from your own unit or your third party or your service provider to your market. You see, that is the structured part of the supply chain. The part of the supply chain that we look after, basically, those people who are in procurement, it starts from the supply chain of the supply chain, which means it's very grassroots. So there are those here who start at the absolute level, at the farm level, you know, like we have these cases. And then there are other things which are procured from those who have already added value. It is usually very unstructured. And that often makes the procurement professional, as a part of this supply chain, to be somewhat reticent. You know, we are not very certain. Actually, that is the truth. And that now deserves respect. And that is the reason the lack of structuring or the lesser structuring is a part of the game, which is to be understood by organizations going forward. And let me tell you that worldwide papers are being rewritten or they are being reconducted to devote and put some kind of a sharp focus on this part of supply chain, because here there are no systems. And on that note, let me move on to my next colleague, Jaswinder, and who will give us yet another aspect of the Rubik's Cube.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jaswinder Saini. I'm from Tata Play. So during the lunchtime, we were talking what to say. This is a difficult session. So they said, you have to add the masala. So I said, oh, that's what I have not brought in. So here it goes. The question was, how will you feel bold? So the answer is, if I have gun, then and a bullet, plus I also need a person who can shoot it, who is a sharp shooter. So that's how I will feel bold. So, okay, let me decipher what does it mean. When I say gun, so gun means the tools and systems that are there in my organization, how efficient they are, how good they are, which can give me real-time analysis, real-time data, real-time insight into what is happening within my organization, with vendor, what is happening at level 2 of vendor. If we have got such tools, that will give me confidence that yes, I know, I understand what is happening in my whole supply chain. That is point 1, which is gun. Second thing I need is the bullet. What is bullet? So bullet is the message that I want to pass on to my management. There are too many messages that need to be passed on to management today. The list is endless, like whether do we want to continue to work in JIT? Answer is no. There are a lot of industries which we want to move from just in time to just in case. I saw on this slide somewhere. Do we want to have onshoring of the manufacturing, or do we want to nearshore the manufacturing? So there's a huge list of messages that we want to pass on to management and take their buying onto those messages. So that is the bullet that I need. Third is the shooter. Who is the shooter? Shooter is my team. I think in the previous panels, it came out very evidently, and somebody said that we need to transplant the whole procurement function, and we want to remove procurement 1.0 and put in procurement 2.0. So in this, what we need to do is we need to have right set of people in our team who can actually understand and analyze what is the message that we need to give. Whether inshoring, nearshoring will help us as an organization, yes or no, it will be coming out from people. Do we need data scientists in our team? Those are the things. So we definitely need to have a newer set of people in our teams who can actually tell us these are the bullets that we need to fire, and these are the people who will shoot at the right aim. That is what, if we have all the three with us, bullet, which is the right system, gun, that is the right system, bullet, the right message, and the shooter, who is the right people in my team. These are the three things that at least make me bold and confident to go to the board and to the MD saying that I want to change my supply chain from this to this.
Great. Thanks a lot. You know, examples keep coming, and if you've noticed, then this panel is not requiring a written script at all. You see, the experiences of the last few years are pouring in. So next, and finally, for the last word on all this is Prashant, and he will discuss and bring yet another aspect, which is actually CapEx, because nothing has been left untouched by what has been happening. Please.
Good afternoon to everybody. I think I have to be again bold and brave. We had a good lunch, so I'm sure everybody is very, very attentive for this session. And I'm the last one to speak, so I would request the concentration of everybody. Okay, I would like to start with the quote that nothing is permanent except the change, and that's what Sandeep did mention sometimes, that we are here now for a topic which is brave and bold, and today's demand, I would say that the change management is something which is most important. One of the audience has definitely did mention about how do we do about our benchmarking, and I would just like to come up to that. Since I am handling majority of the CapEx, definitely in a CapEx you always have a challenge of going to the OEMs. You do not have any alternatives because you have your plant being constructed, you have got a lot of engineering, you have got technologies, and once you procure, then thereafter what needs is the continuity, which needs about the spares and all. And it so happens that whatever structure you want to do in the contracts, maybe you will say that you will give these 2 years spares for 2 years operation and maintenance and all. But it so happens that certain details and all are not available, where you need to have the help. So what the philosophy which we are right now trying to do is one, which has been learnt out, that first of all, of course, the benchmarking we need to do. In the benchmarking, one of my colleagues from the L&T has also mentioned that you drill down to a level where you at least come to a level which is not known, and that particular dark spots you need to address. So basically, you are trying to take some calculated risk of numbers. I would also believe, it is more of a transparency which has come up to a level now. Like we did mention about, the VUCA, and I would say the VUCA has to end with VUCA, where the VU stands for vital. That I would have to say you are a vital for me. You are ultimate for me, so that I would say you is the ultimate. And I would say the C is, our relation has to be so strong like a cement that we are concrete. And end of the day, I said once it does, we both admire each other. So this ultimately the VUCA, which is a risk as of now, we will try to cover up to a VUCA, where again going back to the old stories where some of our seniors has did mention that the concept talks about the single H concept of the management, where people used to talk about I need a people, where the single H, the H stands for hand, that I need a people who works. Then the second concept comes that I need a people with 2H. So the second H stands for I need a hand and I need a head. So I need a people who has a brain to use it. And I would say today's bold and brave concept is that you need a 3H. You need a third H where the people feels hard that this is my company, and that's a relation probably we are trying to develop amongst ourselves. So this 3H will end of the day give the fourth H that we all will be happy at the end. So what we need is to develop a relation, be transparent. As Sandeep said, that negate the negotiate. I would say yes, we have to appreciate that negotiation through some level where the win-win situation happens. And we have a quote in our organization, when we talk about the transparency, we talk about the ethicalness, we talk about the win-win, we say walk the talk. What we mean, we should deliver. Definitely, a change management will take a time to go to the management and go. We have a challenge today, what I think most of the industries, even steel has, cement has, we do not get the coal today. We are struggling it. When we have our own quotas of the coal, when we go to the industry, and the industry says, sorry, this coal is given to the power. So where do we go? We have our own quota. We are not that big companies where we have the mines and all. All our raw materials are, most of the raw materials of the cements are basically a byproduct or a waste for the other industry. So we try to do a long-term contracts. Today the condition is, do we do long-term or do we do short-term? So we keep some spots, do it together. Sometimes when the people, those who have a surplus materials, when they go under pressure, so market intelligence is required. But those type of things have gone. It is, I think, more of a exchange of the thoughts to each other, their problem, because if you do not take it, they will have a problem. So we reach out to them, they say, if you have a stock, let's come back. We find it out how do we do. And so procurement today, instead of, how do you add the values? It's not only a procurement per se. We are reaching to even to the plant people to say what processes we need to change, which can add value. As you rightly said, the profit centers will come again from a procurement, So these are the things basically we are trying to do. And definitely, we have to do more and more in a less and less where we adopt a lot of technologies. We also do a lot of reverse auctions through the SAP Aribas and all. We do that. There also, as somebody said, that unless and until they feel confident that this is going to be transparent, so we'll have to demonstrate in some of the cases. Where yesterday, one of the case came where we did an auction, and what happened is there are two partners who put up a same number, and it's around 1 crore 25 lakh 325 rupees. That's a number which is matched. So it has given me a number. How do I do? How transparent I am? So it's a good. The software talks about you have quoted at 1 o'clock 21 minutes, and somebody has quoted 1 o'clock 23 minutes. So I think probably the 23 minutes found because he gets a L2, but I know he's a L1. So it gives me pressure that he's my partner. How do I tell him? So I need to probably go and tell him this is what has happened. Let's be transparent in the system. I think this is the way people are trying to come back, where the win-win situation is going to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Prashant. So actually, there's nothing much that I can add out here, but I'll just point out certain things as to what we've seen over the period of time and what to expect. You see now, interest rates are going to begin to go up. They're going up as actually a fight against inflation. And at the same time, we are not part of it, but we are part of that organization in which the demand now is beginning to taper down. You see, what a wrong time. So if in 2021 we suddenly saw demand falling but prices low, then we saw that the prices start going up, but the demand was robust. But excuse me. But now we'll see high prices for a time and lower demand. Classical signs of whatever we've studied in economic theory coming back to us in some of our case, in my own personal case, after 20 years of management school. So that's what is happening. The other than that, suddenly it looks like, as Shom pointed out about edible oils, inventory seems like a great word. You see? So that used to be the first page in any textbook on procurement about what to do to control. You don't want to control now, isn't it? So that's what. So there'll be a reverse side of the award. The other thing is that, and the good thing is that analysts are now talking. So typically these people who analyze stocks, the stock analysts who take positions on behalf of the brokerages and fund houses, they are now increasingly focusing on in their reports on companies like us on cost of procurement. That's a great thing. So I just request our fraternity out here, because as I'm doing and many others here are doing, to contribute a lot and make it a structured and highly visible function, because they have that ability to do what we will still take some time. So that awareness will come. Lastly, like the responsibility of forum owners like this, that if there was ever a time made for structuring the function, it was this. And so you also have a very great responsibility. And this goes far beyond any media, any single professional, because you represent all of us. Thanks a lot. And thanks a lot to my esteemed colleagues for sharing their thoughts. And I suppose that we can take the dialogue forward. Thank you. If there are any queries, we can still do, if there's some time left. Sorry. Yes, please. Is there a mic? Yeah.
So thanks for all valuable and very great panel. I think we have people from very strong companies. So what I learned is, I think I'm not hearing the word from the morning, PPV, purchase price variance. I think this is the new KPI for procurement added. And it is giving a big headache to CEOs and CFOs, and they're always looking where this PPV will go. So I would like to really know, because we have people from ITC, I think Sumit himself from Dabur and many other esteemed panels, what it is the outlook, because it's a big problem, and there are many solutions. At least, let's say, I can say, personally, I have tried buying a lot of big quantity in January, February, and which is giving me a lot of benefit now, but can I do more repeated? So I'm doing many unorthodox, which I have never done in my career, but I want to have a really look, because if some CFO sitting somewhere has expectation that one day it will go to the level of 2019, I think maybe not. So how this PPV management, which is a new animal actually for procurement, we never have dealt PPVs, because PPV is more talked about than the savings now, at least in our organization. So we want to know, anyone of you going to take?
So I'll just say something, and then I'll request the panel also to add. You see, the concept of PPV, and this is March is over, and this is the time all those KRAs and will be seen and will all be written in red ink, right? Perhaps blood. I don't know, because that's what has happened. So actually, what we are arguing, and at a lot of places, and this was also a discussion that happened a few days back in another forum, this is the time for open KRAs, because you do not know which out of your KRAs is important. You see, actually, like, for example, wheat is being discussed out here. Edible oil, of course, is an example in which we import. But who could ever have thought that we could be possibly, after a year, be short of wheat? 6 months back, near where my office is in Ghaziabad, near this, all these agitators were sitting 2 kilometers away. And that became it became a spot in Google Maps, basically. You know, so generally that place was known by Dabur, but then Tikat and company came in. Now the situation within 6 months has turned so much after the war that, and after a very hot summer, March was very hot this year, that we might not have that thing. So we might be running around things and materials which we did not know. So organizations are beginning to understand that this is the time for open KRAs, and they will shift. They will shift increasingly in all directions. And investments will have to be made to try to see what could be done. Also, one is not very sure about demand will happen in which sector, or will it even slow down now? Because we are talking of the experience of the past, but the experiences of the next 1 year, let me tell you, if I can stick my neck out, could be worse. And we need to tighten our seat belts. And not only ours, but that of the organization also. So that, from that point of view, that could be one argument. If there is anybody else who can add to what I'm saying, or something else, another point of view. Not working.
Yeah. So sometimes the advantages of age. I have seen 3 cycles in my career. One, before the dot-com bust. Second, before the Lehman Brothers bust. And now, of course, this one is the most violent of them all. So what are we doing here? First of all, we went to the management summit and told them, इस बार appraisal में what is going to count is our procurement functions resilience. हमारी 122 फैक्ट्रियाँ एक shift के लिए भी रुकी नहीं. That is what you should judge us on, right? They will know that. Second, to take a leaf out of State Trading Corporation of China. You know, there are various things to be said about Chinese, but as businessmen and as people who understand commodities, those guys are brilliant. And they just simple, very simple. Whenever something is cheap and abundant, they stock it. It's as simple as that. And Hindi में अगर हम trader की language में बात करें, तो आज की date में the KRA is, we tell the vendors कि भाई दाम आपका और volume मेरा, right? I need to cover myself. That's one. Second, very quickly, vendor. This is the time that you will be faced with the maximum amount of counterparty risk. Contracts people will write, they've been supplying to you for 20 years, but you know, they get stuck. And then what do you do? So the first question that you ask after the contract has been written is how well are you protected yourself? And what help can ITC do? See, being cash rich has its advantages. So what we often do, and one of the tactics that we use, is that we help them with money to cover their material, to be back-to-back covered, right? So that gives me the security of supply. And of course, last point, Sumit, if I have another,
sure.
I'll just like to take half a minute to tell you one use case of how we've been able to, procurement has been able to be bold and push for something. I'm very proud of this. This just happened. So the Dark Fantasy, the t-shirt that I'm wearing, many of you would have probably eaten this cookie. It's a nice, rich, chocolate-colored dark cookie, right? And that darkness in that cookie shell used to come from a cocoa powder, which was from an ingredient multinational who used to take Ghana cocoa, take it to Singapore in his plant, alkalize it, very high alkalized, and then give it. So the color was from that high degree of alkalization. So let me put it in simple language. Natural cocoa powder made in India from Indian cocoa is what, 150 rupees? This was 850 rupees, plus import duty. Plus Singapore. And you know, 8 saal se I've been fighting with this Atmanirbharta before it became politically very important, and I had been able to take out most imported stuff from my product portfolio. But right. This one, and this one when COVID-1 happened and the disruption happened, that's when it was a Apada mein Afsar. I went and told the biscuit guys and their product development कि बस ये तो नहीं आने वाला, अब इसका आप निकालो solution. 15 दिन में solution निकला, और वो भी देसी solution निकला. And very simple. And I don't know if I have a colleague here from Mondelez, but so what? It's procurement fraternity. So all we did was that dark color, we were able to get it by caramelizing sugar to a degree. Right. And it also had a little bitterness with high alkalization. That bitterness we got with neem extract.
Wonderful.
So the net, my thing was 200 bucks a kilo versus 850 plus taxes, etc. So I'm just saying sometimes you got to be bold. You got to take the, you got to take the bull by the horns and, push it and, make it happen. So now when you eat a dark fantasy, hey, it's very, very healthy.
Also, national service plus the fact that you might just have prevented a little lesser depreciation of the currency. You see, that's also service. So on that note,
It's
thanks.
just one minute.
Sure, please.
And it's a change. See, if the time is tough, everyone has to handhold. You have to do a soft landing to everyone. You may be having contracts, but if the variation is to the tune of 30-40%, which is like beyond. Right now, the issue is about the cash is never a constraint now. The constraint is about the availability. So you have to be very, very transparent, and you open your books, and that we have seen, when the refractory prices, coal issues in China, and the refractory prices like calcined bauxite and all these issues, fused magnesia, dry burn magnesia, all these prices went to the level of 40-50%. So there is no other way out, but to support your supplier partner. So
Just to add to what he said, just closing off this conversation is that, no, don't let that be your KRA. That's it, simple. I would rather say that, no, don't let that be your KRA for this year. This is not going to work out.
and you can't take all these fights. Some of the things you have to let it go.
So I guess
The people are changing the concepts again. That is a cost plus. People are talking about you do a cost plus. So at least you get a transparency on that. A lot of contracts are being done where you renegotiate with a cost plus basis. So people get that whatever they want to plus, and then you and they store together, you can work out as a cost. That's a model also. People are doing it nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.